Welcome back, everybody, to the No Starving Artist podcast. Another day, another episode. If you're listening to this or watching this, it's hopefully a Monday, but really, listen anytime. Tune in whenever you would like. And hopefully you get some knowledge and some information and maybe some inspiration along the way as well. Don't forget, as always, nsadance.com. That's where you can find out everything there is to know about No Starving Artists. Dance critiques, mentorship, as well as all the other shows that we produce and release on a weekly basis. So be sure to check those all out. And without further ado, let's jump into today's episode. We've got a great guest. I think it's going to be some really good topic that a lot of people are going to resonate with. So let's get into it. Kiara, welcome to the No Starving Artist podcast. How are you?
Hey, I'm awesome. How are you?
I'm doing pretty good. Thanks for asking.
Good.
Give the people a little bit of a rundown on who you are and what you do.
Okay, my name is Kiara Leigh, and I reside on the west coast of British Columbia, just about an hour outside of Vancouver City. And currently, I am working as a dance educator at a number of different studios in the Lower Mainland, and just calling out greatness out of students. It's something that I love to do. So that's where I'm currently at.
I love it. And we got connected through Clara Eaton, who's
Yes.
a good friend of mine, definitely a friend at this point. We started off as just kind of, connecting online, and we've done so much up to this point that definitely consider her a friend. And so anytime she throws somebody my way, I'm like, it's got to be great. It's, it's an immediate yes. It's an easy answer. So I was glad you reached out.
Thank you.
I'm also glad because, I have a lot of followers that are in Canada, and I get a lot of questions about the differences between Canada and the States when it comes to competitive dance. And there are some differences from a choreography standpoint, for sure. What I see on stage there versus what I see on stage here. What I like about sort of some of the discussion that we're going to be having today is it's a lot of similarities, unfortunately. The things that we're going to kind of get into are things that are really spanning across the board in dance right now. And I think a lot of teachers are seeing very similar things. But before we kind of get too deep into things here, you mentioned you teach at a few different studios. What do you teach? What kind of got you into teaching in the first place, and why are you still doing it?
Well, it goes back to my very early years. I walked into a dance studio at 3 years old, and I just never stopped. I trained in a number of different styles, jazz, tap, ballet. I have a great background in musical theater, which is I'm a professional dancer, singer, actor, so have had the opportunity to play a number of stages, a little bit of film and television as well. And I studied in California right after graduating from high school. And I think it's just me, where my path has taken me, the things that I've walked through in life, what I experienced personally growing up within the dance community, and finding that need. I'm a bit old school. So I grew up, with the teachers yelling at me and demanding so much. And I knew from a very early age that I wanted to invest something different into students. And after I had my two girls, and I left the theater for a little while. It's not that I've left it forever, but my compass changed. And I started recognizing a real need with seeing what was being displayed, especially with social media that is so prominent now in our world, both for good and for not so good, that there was a need for students to understand their identity and how their identity precedes what they do. Because I see so many people just vying for attention. So we started off that, we see some of the similarities in the competitive dance world, and how it has really become a pick me attitude, and how so many and we're dealing with kids here.
Mm-hmm.
So their
Mm-hmm.
identity is really grafted into the applause and
Mm.
vying for attention instead of understanding that their worth and their value was determined long before anyone had an opinion about them.
Mm.
And there are going to be opinions, and that is something that is never going to change. But I think that students need to have a home base to come home to
Mm.
and understand that at the end of the day, I mean, there's a vast difference between competitive dance and recreational dance, and yet there are so many lessons that are congruent that
Mm-hmm.
run
Mm-hmm.
um, through this thing we call dance.
Mm.
And yeah, I have a heart. I see kids. You know, we can clean the outside of the cup, so to speak.
Mm.
But I think there's a lot of things that are going on internally, not just for dance students, but I even other dance educators that I encounter.
Yeah.
And I think we've learned, so many of us have learned to sort of play the game, if you will,
Mm.
rather than just stepping in to the uniqueness of who we are. And I
Mm.
think when we can find that, and I think when dancers are afforded to have environments that support that, I think that I hope that we will see perhaps a change, maybe not in the way that the competitive world is the trajectory that it's on,
Mm-hmm.
because sometimes our outside circumstances don't change.
Yeah.
But the way that we can approach it from a strong foundational standpoint internally, I think will make all the difference because perspective is everything. And so
Mm.
that is what I am passionate about,
Yeah.
to let people know that whether they dance for the rest of their life or they don't, that their identity is not attached to what they do,
Mm.
but to who they are.
Mm. There's a lot to unpack there.
Mm.
I mean, first, I agree. I agree with pretty much everything you just said. Yeah, I mean, I'm in. I'm locked in. I think you're absolutely right. I think this identity crisis is playing out on a really large scale, and it's really unfortunate to watch when you're tuned into it. That's one thing that I've noticed, and I'm curious if you've noticed this as well, because sometimes I'll even get questions like, how are you recognizing, how are you reading these kids so quickly? And I think it's really just like a tuning thing. I think it's just like being attuned to the right frequency and leading with a specific intention that really allows me to like, is I'm thinking so little about their dancing. It's kind of funny. Like when I enter a room, especially if I'm working with a kid for the first time, I'm thinking so little about their dancing that it leaves so much space for everything else. And you just see it all over these kids. They're just
Mhm.
so unsure, and they're looking for someone to kind of, you know, give them a thumbs up or a thumbs down. And it's like, it's a really tragic place to be in right now. And so, yeah, I mean, I agree so much with what you're saying. What I would love to kind of get into for a second is when you approach your classes, what are some things that you feel like if you were to make a list of like priorities when you enter a classroom, what's towards the top end of that list for you?
Whew, that's like a loaded question.
It is.
Um, and I think it really depends upon the environment that
Mm,
I'm in.
mm,
Well, let's just put this right out on the table. Right now I am currently employed at two studios,
mm-hmm,
and they are both vastly different,
mm,
which is completely fine. One is more of a recreational based studio that
okay.
still competes,
Mm-hmm,
and one is an elite level studio.
okay.
And so I would say walking into an elite level studio, which I did this season, and it's actually a new studio for me.
Mm-hmm,
It was like there was a standard that was already set.
mm,
So I'm coming into dancers that understand what is expected of them at that level. And I think there are many dancers that already understand how they are to behave in class. And most of them have a pretty good idea of what they bring to the dance floor. They feel
Mm.
pretty solidified.
Mm-hmm.
At the other studio I teach at, it's a completely different demographic. And I am finding that the majority of those students are coming in with a real, how you just described, needing the need to be validated. So
Mm.
how I approach these two scenarios is completely different. One studio I approach with, well, I would say both. How you doing? How was your day? I need to have that space for students to feel like they are seen as a human being
Mm.
first,
Mm.
not as a robot that need to just jump when the teacher says, I
Yeah.
need you to do XYZ.
Yeah.
They need to know that they are a human first and that they are seen as a person of great value and worth.
Yeah.
And so I think that was a long way around the mulberry bush to come back to this point that my first thing on the top of my list is that you are seen,
Mm.
you are fully seen, you are fully known, and you are fully loved. Because I love my students like they're my own. And I think there are students that maybe for the first time that I hope when they come, well, not I hope. I think it's unfortunate sometimes that sometimes they walk into my class and they feel an exhale because it's the first time that they've actually been seen,
Mm.
where they don't feel like they need to perform,
Mm-hmm.
that they can be just who they are and they're not worried about getting in trouble.
Mm-hmm.
And within that, there has to be some boundaries set in place, because I tell my kids, I can hold space for you, um, but I'm your teacher. I'm
Mm-hmm.
not your mom. I'm not
Mm-hmm.
supposed to be your mom. I'm not supposed to be your caregiver. But I am a mentor to you. And there's a fine line there that I want to know how you're doing.
Mm-hmm.
But when you're in the room, you're here to work.
Mm.
And once that work is done and you need somebody to chit chat to, then I can be that person.
Mm.
But it's a fine it's definitely a fine line there, but I would say at the top of my list is kids that feel seen when they come into the room right off the bat, so that they don't feel like they have to go to competition, or we see so running rampantly now conventions where
Mm-hmm.
these kids are just they're needing to be in the front and they're you know
Yep.
doing all sorts of things where they feel like they have to vie for attention. And I
Mm.
don't ever want my students to feel that. I don't
Yeah.
want them to feel like they have to vie for their attention anywhere. So I don't
Yeah.
know if that answered your
It
question,
does.
but
It does.
it's something that I'm so passionate about.
When you first started teaching, do you feel like you were already tapped into that process, or do you think that it took you a little bit to get to that point, or was it because I remember the reason I'm asking is because I mean, and I've spoken about this before. When I first started teaching, I was just awful in so many ways, and one of which is I thought that I had to be, you know, kind of the opposite of what we're talking about. I thought that I needed to be, overbearing and the ruler of the land, and like what I say goes, because I thought that that's how that respect was going to be created and that leadership was going to be created. How quickly do you feel like you were able to kind of like tap into like, okay, what is happening a lot of times in studios is not working. Maybe I need to make a switch or a shift.
Oof. Well, I would um I relate to what you just said.
Mm.
I began teaching when I was very young,
Mm-hmm.
like my senior year of high school actually.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I was just awful
Yeah.
also, because that's what was modeled for me,
Yep.
which
Yep.
is why I am so much more acutely aware
Mm.
of how I conduct my classes, because I don't know who is in my classes that maybe wants to explore the path
Uh,
of dance education.
yeah.
But I was awful. I thought, just as you said, would walk into a classroom and I'm the teacher, so
Mhm.
everybody must listen to me. And
Mhm.
exactly that, I thought if I conducted myself that way, that I was being professional,
Mhm.
and that I, could control a room when in fact it was the exact opposite,
Yeah.
and couldn't understand why I had kids running willy-nilly. I would start with the preschoolers, and let me tell you, it takes a special kind of someone to be teaching those preschoolers.
Yep. Yep.
And that's why I don't really agree with having students still right out
Yeah.
the gate teaching those babies, because
Yeah.
that
I'm
they are
I'm the
a
same.
it is, yeah, a completely different world.
Yeah.
It took me some time to walk through some life,
Mm.
quite frankly,
Mm.
to understand the things that I did not appreciate, that I was encountering when I was coming into a dance class or audition world
Yep.
or in TV land or in theater land. And I thought, my goodness, is this the trajectory that we're on? It feels like a never-ending hamster wheel of parroting what we've
Mm.
seen model for us.
Yep.
But the truth is that we all have choices in life. So regardless of the background that you have had or the life journey that you have had, and I think that's something that is deeply lacking in today's society in general, is a lack of accountability.
Yeah.
So to hear you express openly and not be afraid to say it, just like I'm not, because it's made me who I am today, that
Yeah.
I was terrible
Yeah.
walking in my early years of teaching.
Yeah.
When we negate to accept responsibility, and accountability,
Yeah.
we cannot expect to grow, and we
Yeah.
cannot expect to invest anything of real quality and something that will last, the test of time for the students that we have the great privilege and honor. Their parents. I'm a parent too, so it matters where my kid dances.
Yep. Yep.
Um, I mean, these kids are spending a huge amount of time with us,
Yep.
and we've got to be very, very aware
Yeah.
of how we are conducting myself. And I miss the mark every day, and I need grace upon grace. But I have purposed, when I make a mistake in class, I will say it,
Mm.
because I need my students to know that I am as much human as they are, and
Yeah.
that even as an adult, I make mistakes and I need to own it. And I want them to feel safe to know that mistakes aren't the determining factor of their self worth,
Mm.
that their mistakes are what help them grow,
Mm.
right?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, that's really powerful, and I agree with you. I think I see it all the time with, unfortunately, with the content that I make. I can see it in the way people respond sometimes. That I think a lot of dance teachers struggle with that accountability component. They don't
Yeah.
want to admit that they're doing something, not even necessarily wrong, but that they could be doing something better.
Mhm.
And I think it's really unfortunate because it's not it really is a simple task once you get used to it. You admit you're wrong and you fix it and do better. It really is. It isn't as scary as it seems once
No.
you do it the first time. You're like, oh, the world's still spinning, I'm still alive, now I'm just better at what I do.
Yeah. And I wish I do. I see this even now. And maybe it's because it's the age that I am, and I look around me, and it's not like, oh, I know all the things, because let
Mm.
me tell you, none of us have fully arrived,
No.
and we will be ever evolving and
Yeah.
ever learning. And the moment we stop learning, it's like, you pack it in,
Yep.
because I mean, my kids teach me more than I could ever say, but it
Yeah.
really is sad, because I look at some people that are just like, so controlling
Mm-hmm.
over their studios or their classes, and no, you can't do this, and no, you can't advance here. And we're yelling at you backstage, or we're giving you the silent treatment, or if,
Yeah.
it really does not create that space. Like, what is going on the outside to the general public is not always what's happening behind closed doors.
Yep. Yep.
And I will tell you, and this, that who you truly are and how you conduct yourself when no one else is watching is who you are. And it will
Yep.
always show up in your work. It is only a matter of time.
Yep.
And people are only going to put up with so much. And it's really unfortunate to, with the topic that we're on, is that there are so many parents and kids that think that there is only one way to the destination.
Yep.
And that is not the truth.
Yep.
I am such a firm believer that there is a plan and a purpose for your life.
Yep.
And everybody's path is different. We should all be running our race together, and we could look over at our friend over here and not have to compete with them and go, you're doing a bang up job, you're awesome, keep going. And unfortunately, I don't see a whole lot of that. It's there are pockets of it, there are glimmers of it, and it is so exciting to see. But for these ones that are just like, nope, this is the way and this is how I do it, and if you don't like it, you can go dance somewhere else. That to me is such a great indication of such an immature heart posture, and such insecurity within them, that there is something going on the inside of them, that they feel the need that they need to control everybody else to get their trophies on the wall, which at the end of the day, as we know, these trophies are not, they are of little value, really. We can't take it. We can't take them with us. It's about true. Relationship. It's about relationship.
100%. I think the measurables are absolutely wrong in a lot of situations. I think sometimes I toss around the idea of like, an interesting way to promote your studio would be to, let's say you've been around for 40 plus years. How many people have brought their kids to your studio? How many people grew up with your studio, left, had kids, and brought their kids back? How many of your former students come back and, say hi or teach for you or choreograph for you? But you're right. The metrics a lot of people look at are like, are you winning? Do you guys win? Do you guys win here? And it's like, well, that's one part of the picture, but also, do people want to come back? Do people leave and feel gratitude and appreciation towards the program they went through, or do they leave and feel like they're glad to be done? It's an interesting concept to think about how we measure success in dance. Yes. And my thought for you is, we led into this with this idea that dancers are seeking validation, and I'm curious what your thoughts are on, because we see right now the big topic of discussion is the choreography that we're seeing on stage, and the specific types of choreography that we're seeing. To me, it feels like there's a lot of crossover between what we're talking about here, where the choreography that we're seeing is, maybe we say, more easily validated than something that may be a little bit more risky or a little bit more unique or a little bit more individualized. Do you think that there is crossover between those two worlds? Do you think what we're seeing on stage in terms of, the amount of tricks and the amount of, similarities between routines stemming from this idea of everybody in the space wanting to be validated a little bit more for their work?
100%, unequivocally. And I see it like I'm seeing your face on the screen right now. And it is deeply concerning. And as the saying goes, Rome wasn't built in a day. But in fact, I actually had this conversation yesterday, very briefly, with my husband. And I said, no two sunsets, no two sunrises are the same, and they haven't been since the beginning of time. And when you think about it that way, it's quite remarkable that there is an artist that gives us these beautiful paintings each and every day when our eyes wake up.
Well,
and so we look at this choreography that's being placed on stage, and a lot of it is quite brilliant. But I know choreographers that are upwards of 60 routines a season, and I'm thinking, wow, like, how are you not burnt out? And in fact, as you say, you look at these these routines, as a judge, and you see them and it's like, well, here comes this and it looks the same as XYZ. And here comes this lyrical routine and it looks like an acro. And this jazz routine looks like an acro and this. And I'm thinking, it's void of this is missing. I had said in my conversation with my husband, and I say this actually to my daughter, who was 12 and a remarkable artist in her own right at such a young age. And I said, the moment it begins to be a chore, and the moment your creativity is lost, because this is her first year she did her own self-choreography this season. I thought it was brilliant.
I love that.
We saw it for the first time on stage this weekend, and I was like, wow. If that creativity is lost, there's a wealth of it. It is a never-ending, inexhaustive supply. It is new morning by morning. But when you lack self-confidence and awareness of who you are, you will resort to being a carbon copy of someone you were never created to be. And therefore, you are this industry is not about me, myself, and I. If your choreography, yes, there's a component. We're throwing ourselves into the competitive arena. But really, at the end of the day, it's art and it's subjective. Some people like Monet and some people like Picasso. But if you don't know who you are, as I just said, you will resort to be a carbon copy of someone else, and you are doing those that are looking at you and looking up to you a great disservice, because then we get back to the beginning of our conversation. They parrot and model what they see, and they feel that, well, so-and-so person over here is doing this and it is winning all of the awards and having 25,000 tricks in a routine, that's what's winning. And it is the winning component that is the end all be all, when it is a perception of what winning actually is. So is your character winning? Are you bringing integrity to the table? Because as far as I'm concerned, if you have to copy other people's choreography, if all of your routines are looking the same, if you have to throw a million tricks into a routine for a student because they lack the simplistic foundational technique to just simply be. What happened to stillness? Every count is choreographed when so few realize that there is power and presence in the moments of pause, because that is where your rhythm and who you truly are is found. People need to stop and take a breath. And I don't think we're seeing that across the board, stylistically, in so much of the choreography we're seeing. Some of it is quite awesome. It's cool commercially. You've got precision dances, which is an entirely different skill in and of itself. And I'm not saying this to say that one is bad and one is good. There is a crossover, but I think, as in life, there needs to be balance. There has to be balance. But I worry for friends that I have, for people I know that are just getting caught up on the hamster wheel of this big box productivity, right? It's like shopping at Walmart rather than a local store. I don't know if that makes sense.
It does.
You want to support your local community. Call out the greatness and support the unique creativity that's happening within people, and support that and celebrate that on stage without needing to place like, well, how that was a great routine because you had a back layout. Okay, well, what about this person and this group on stage that is just kind of holding hands and just standing looking to the back of the theater, and it feels like an eternity, but really it was a 2-second pause because they had a breath together and they lived through that moment. I miss that as a judge. Actually, I miss those moments. I see these kids just like trying to race to the finish line so quickly, and they're
Yep.
kids.
Yep.
And I see that even as choreographers. They you see it, Jason, you have a huge social media platform. And I don't know if this is true for you. That's why I value the content that you put out, even your
Huh.
little shorts and the things that you do from day to day, because it is like, this is me and
Yeah.
this is who I am. And I am creating space for you to do the same.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
if nobody has said that to you, or if you're wondering, because I think, as educators in places that we are right now, we wonder, like, what the heck? I feel like I'm stepping out, everybody's swimming this way, but
Mm.
I'm going this way.
Yeah.
Because if
Yeah.
you even look at history, if you even read any ancient writings, maybe you've noticed, it is the ones that stand alone that have gone through. So, like, I mean, it's like they've got everything coming left, right, and center. They
Mm.
feel like everybody's looking at them the wrong way. They feel completely invalidated. They're going like, somebody throw me a bone. Is anybody listening?
Mm.
And I think it comes down to, I don't know if we will ever feel completely solidified. I think we're human.
Yeah.
And I think we do need to that's why I'm so passionate about just supporting other people,
Yeah.
because we all want that for ourselves. We all want validation, but it can, just like anything else, it can become very toxic when we're
100%.
constantly seeing outside validation. And so when I think what we're seeing, to circle again back to your question, is that when you feel that need to vie for attention, when you feel that drive to just win, so that on a worldly platform you can feel like you have achieved success,
Mm.
but inside you wake up every morning and you can play all the motivational podcasts you want to, you can post whatever you want on social media, but if your head is hitting the pillow at night and you know that you have had to tear other people down or steal their choreography or do whatever for
Mm.
yourself to get ahead, to me, that is not the definition of winning or success.
Mm.
That is why I am hoping that there are more of us that are feeling the same way. That when I said earlier, Rome wasn't built in a day,
Yeah.
it is small steps, and it is truly leading by example, and it is doing exactly what you are doing on your platform, Jason, is allowing people the time and the space to just simply be and share who they are, so that it may give others inspiration to just stand away from the rest of the crowd and
Mm.
and be willing. You have to, in this work, you have to be willing to be judged, to be scrutinized, to be placed under a microscope, and none of that, and know wholeheartedly that none of that defines you.
Yeah.
Because if you can be pleased and happy with what you have put out there and what you invest into others, it's, if you are fully satisfied knowing that you have done the right thing based on your personal belief system, then nothing else matters.
Yeah. I mean, oh, wow. That was such a great just explanation of what's going on. And I have so many thoughts. I mean, yeah, I've talked about before, once upon a time, I don't remember the context, but I distinctly remember especially when I first started teaching, but for a long time, I would have been torn apart if I went to competition and my routines looked like somebody else's. The goal was always for my routines to be so uniquely mine. Like, I wanted them to go out on stage and everybody to immediately be like, that's one of Jason's routines. And I think that I have to give applaud to my mother, because I think that she really laid that foundation for me really young, in the sense that, like, I even remember when I was growing up, like, I never dressed like anybody else. Like, I always wanted to wear different things, and it was always celebrated in my household, and always sort of like, and I think maybe sometimes, it took me a little while to control that ego when I got older, because I think, it was very large. But I think that, like, a lot of kids are missing that. A lot of artists in general. I, for a long time, I don't have a lot of artist friends. And there's a really big reason for that, is because, especially now, having the platform that I do, everyone wants to just tell me exactly how to use it. And everybody wants to tell me exactly what I should be doing with it. And I noticed really quickly, when I started surrounding myself with other artists, is that everyone just wants you to do what they're doing, so that they feel a little bit better about what they're doing. And it really is a shame, because it doesn't, I don't know, it just doesn't compute in my head. I'm like, I don't want to do what you're doing. You're already doing it, and you're doing great at it. So keep doing that. I'm going to do my thing over here.
Right.
And and it's funny, because even, when I interact with kids nowadays, they're like, everything is so much the same. And I think social media does play into that. I think it
Yeah, it
would
does.
be, I think it would be wrong to say that it doesn't have a really big effect on all of what we're talking about. But I think, unfortunately, it's also reinforced by studios that are exactly how you described, chasing the win. They're chasing that first place, and they're sacrificing a lot to get there. And I don't know, and maybe it's self-righteous, but sometimes I'm like, I could do the pieces that win. I could do the pieces that the judges want to see and get first place overall, and that would be great. But I'm not fulfilled by that, and maybe that's selfish. But at the same time, like, to me, that's the experience of working with an artist. Like, the people that I enjoyed working with as a young dancer and artist were the people that were so profoundly themselves, that rubbed off on me a little bit. I wasn't feeling them second guess their decisions.
Mhm.
They were just making decisions, and I was there, at their feet for every second of it. And now it feels like everyone is second guessing everything they do so much. And that bleeds down to the dancers. That bleeds down to the students.
Yeah. And what a gift to have that instilled by your mama at such an early age.
Yeah.
It really is a gift,
Yeah.
Jason, because
Yeah.
there's not a lot of kids that have that, because I look around, and maybe you've noticed this at the competitive world, and I will tell you, and I'll just say this, because I am a dance mom, but let me tell you, I got to separate myself out of that whole world,
Mm.
because I've never seen anything like it. Sometimes the moms are just like more driven than
Yeah.
the students are.
Yeah.
And it really is a toxic cycle there.
Yep.
And gosh, we could carry on this conversation for so long. I think it's a much needed conversation. It is a breath of fresh air, but I think authenticity is being lost. And like you said, when you're chasing the win, um, that so much of who we uniquely are is lost. And I say to my students so often, even my own daughter, I say, you got to shut out the noise, honey.
Mm.
You got to shut out the noise, dial into your own radio station. And and also, I think there needs to be a clear, definitive recognition between what an artist truly is,
Mm.
and then just what a carbon copy of something is.
Mm.
There's a vast difference. So what you're saying is, what I feel I hear I'm saying is that it's the essence of who you are that's coming out, is what you're setting on these kids, because
Yeah.
you know nothing else to do. What
Yeah.
you're setting, and what I am hopefully setting on the students that I have, is just a continuation of the things that I've walked through in
Yeah.
my life.
Yeah.
Otherwise, what's the point? Now,
Yeah.
in saying that, there are some studios that you're employed at, they don't give a fat rat's fuzzy behind about anything that you've walked through.
Mm.
And it is just, you know, this is what we want. This is the studio we expect XYZ. And so then there's a decision to be made.
Mm.
Is this the place that's for me? Is it not? You know, I don't know. Again, we're circling back, but I do think it is doing the industry as we see it now a great disservice.
Mm-hmm.
So much has changed since when I grew up in competitive dance.
Yeah.
Truly, and that's okay. It's not to say that all of it is terrible.
Yeah.
We need to grow and evolve. But as you mentioned, social media, I think, is a big one, and it unfortunately now, well, there are some good things about it, right? Your resume for so much is your social media, unfortunately.
100%.
I
100%.
mean, I still teach my kid. She doesn't want to go the commercial dance route, and I'm almost like, praise the Lord, because it's not really where I want her to be.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, but
It's a crazy space.
I remember the days we didn't have social media.
Yeah.
We were knocking on doors, sending resumes, standing on like on the street in lineups for
Yep.
hours to get
Yep.
into an audition. And these kids don't get it because we are living in a fast food culture.
Yep.
So when
Yep.
we're talking about choreography that we're seeing, it is this. We're
Yeah.
seeing big name choreographers that are just like, because, and a lot of times kids don't understand it. It's a lot of it is just connection and
Mm.
networking as to
Mm.
why all of a sudden they just went viral.
Yep.
But is going viral the end all be all? Like, I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's what, you know, as we're articulating this, I think that is a core issue of social media, is that nowadays we've associated views with success. And so, you know, before social media, you didn't always have a great read on someone's success.
Mm,
You know, you would see an incredible piece of work, or you would see them in action, and you would be able to feel their energy, and you would be able
mhm.
to feel that power, but you never necessarily had anything to equate like that's successful. So I think that ignition was different because it was pure inspiration. It was pure, I don't want to copy that because I don't even know what that's doing
Right.
for that person, but I'm inspired by it.
Yes.
I think now the difference is we're seeing those moments of greatness get platformed and get viewed and get liked. And because we've equated that with success, now we're just rinse and repeating those formulas because we're chasing after that same thing. And it's a
100%.
really interesting, it's I mean it's like you said, it's really just terribly sad to see it play out. And you see, you know, I see these young artists where I'm like, you know, they can't, and I sometimes feel bad even saying it because it feels so rude, but like they don't know how to dance. They know how to do steps, they know how to do choreography, but they don't actually know how to dance. And it's not, it's, I mean, you put music on, you tell them to do something. And I've literally had kids, very, very, very talented kids, I have put music on and told them to dance, and they stood there and looked at me, and I walk over to them and I'm like, what's going on? And they're like, I don't know what to do. And
Yeah.
I'm like, what do you mean? This is what it is. This is this is the thing. Like, you put music on, you dance. But so many of these kids aren't doing that anymore.
They're
They're not getting the chance to just put music on and dance, and they're not doing it at home because they're taking so, like, a lot of my mentorship clients are taking so much dance that the thought of dancing at home is like
wow.
dreadful to them. I remember when I was growing up, like, you couldn't, every
Stop.
second I was at home, I was dancing. There was music on and I was dancing.
Yeah.
But it was because I wasn't, I think it was because that was the outlet for me. And so you know, the whole dynamic has shifted because, like you said, this fast food culture, this more, everything's more is better, more is better. If we get them in the studio more, it's more money. They're going to be better. They're going to be stronger. Not always the case.
No, it's not. And what you said just, it brought tears to my eyes because that is really the essence of why I do what I do.
Yeah. Yeah.
I will tell on myself. I was driving in the vehicle last night to go pick up my kid from a rehearsal at the theater. And I was just the weirdest thing, Jason. I am the age I am now, and there are just things because of, my body going through surgeries, etc., just certain things it doesn't do. But all of a sudden, I had this flashback, probably when I was 14 years old. I'm going to cry probably talking to you about it. Literally standing at the bar in a studio doing a plie. It was ridiculous. I had tears running down my face, and I thought, this is the stupidest thing. And I thought, this is what dance is. And just like you said, I have students that come into class. You see it as a judge. You can rehearse a 2.5-minute routine till you are blue in the face and your hands are like this and you are all just like so. But you ask a kid to do a simple foundational step or just even stand in the middle of the room with the music on, and what organically comes out of them. And exactly like you said, they're like, I don't know. Why? Because they don't know who they are, because they've had, unfortunately, most of them from the time they've been little have had their iPhones in front of their faces. And social media is telling them who they are and what they need to be. And now, before we had to be intentional about different things. Now we have to be intentional about stepping away from all of this, all of the shiny, flashy. As we know, all that glitters is not gold. Everything that is put in your face as a wonderful, brilliant opportunity, this person is winning. So I got to go to this studio and this choreographer is the best. So I got to spend $1,500 to get a solo set on me. If it is void, and it always comes back to this, if it doesn't have this, even as a judge, like I go into a different mode. You can tell the kids that are there because they want to be there. And oftentimes, more often than not, it is the kid that most people would not think is the first place overall winner. It is the kid that might not have a fully extension to their toes or a bent knee or whatever, but man, they are living on that stage. And I connect with that. And of course, we can't as judges. I mean, we're hired as there's an expectation, for placements. But I'm telling you, in my critique system, to try and encourage that one that is living from a place of true authenticity is quite remarkable to see. And as I circled back around again, I saw it for the first time in my kid this weekend. And I don't know if it's wild as a mom to see. I saw it in her eyes. I saw the minute, she's only 12, and I saw it the minute from her routines that went before. And she would come off stage and she'd say, Mama, was it okay? And I'm thinking, oh my gosh, kid, was it okay? You are leaps and bounds beyond where I ever was or ever will be. And it is a privilege and an honor to behold. But her last routine was her self-choreography. And I sat in the audience and I watched her at 12. And it was a moment when she ended, and it was just a gaze. And in that moment was a complete convergence of her knowing that it's not about the approval of others, waiting for the applause. Am I okay? Am I enough? It was, this is who I am. And I deserve to be here. And it is a great honor and privilege to be able to share this. See, if we are not in dance out there with the heart posture, people talk about what's your why. Not that everybody's why is wrong, but I want to win. I wanted this. I wanted that. It's okay to want these things. But at the very core of who we have been created to be, if what has been placed on the inside of us is not used to be a service and inspiration to others,
Mm.
then for me, I don't want it.
Yeah.
Because one day we are going to leave this earth. And what are we leaving behind? 25 million double platinum rainbow unicorn awards?
Yeah.
Big deal. Big deal. It comes down to relationship and understanding who we are so
Yeah.
that we are able to invest and encourage others. So to see that moment in my kid at such a young age was something amazing. And I hope that she always remembers that, because that is what is going to stand the test of time, regardless if she continues in this industry or not.
Yeah.
Because when dancers realize who they are and they are able to convey that on the stage, when choreographers that we know and love understand that and stop putting out stuff to follow the status quo, it 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 will shake, it will shake the very foundations that people thought that dance was. And so many people don't understand, because we walk into studios and people don't understand, like, jazz dancing, okay, that's really not jazz dancing, so it's a style. There is a whole culture
Yeah.
and communication that came before,
Yeah. Yeah.
if that makes sense. So when, it's a whole can of worms that we've opened, in a conversation that can continue on forever. And I am privileged and grateful to have the time that you would offer your time today to open this platform up for us to have this discussion about something I think we are both very passionate about, and maybe one day we'll be able to continue the conversation, because
100%.
yeah.
100%. Yeah. Yeah. I tell almost everybody that I have that I tend to do second episodes with everybody, because one's never enough, and it's
Mm.
always, fun to just kind of come back to the table and essentially pick up where we left off, but also, the introductions are out of the way, right? So it's much more
Yeah.
of just kind of like an organic conversation. And so, yeah, absolutely, you will be hearing from me, and I want you to know as well, the way that you know the same way that I feel like I am called to, work with kids and recognize things that they're having issues with. Um, I feel like part of that is being in tune with uh, people's motivation and intention. And you can tell by the way someone talks about their art or talks about the way that they approach class. Uh, in the circles that I grew up in, we call it, faking the funk. Um, and you're definitely not faking the funk at all. The way that you talk about what you do, and the way you talk about, you know, your classes and your students is really profound. And I hope that resonates. I hope that people feel that as well. And I hope that people understand that, it's never too late to adjust your individual course, and it's never too late to, take input and figure out your own output. And there's no shame. There's no shame in admitting that maybe you've been doing things wrong and there's a better way to do things, or there's a different way to do things, or there's a different approach. Because yeah, had I not made that shift, I don't think I would be where I am today. And I don't think that I would, be able to create the spaces that I am able to create today. And so I think, taking accountability for what you're doing and what you've done, and adjusting that is really important. And yeah, I really equally appreciate your time and your energy, and I'm so glad that we had this chat today. Tell people, where can they find you if people have, I don't know if you're open to it, but if people have questions for you, are they able to reach out to you, that type of thing?
100%. I am little platform, mostly of things that are the hard things to talk about, sometimes the
Mm.
things that people don't want to say. I am on Instagram at Miss Kiara Leigh. Very easy to find. I am more than happy to facilitate any kind of conversation, to support others on their journey. It is a passion of mine. We are not meant to do this life alone. I know what it feels like to stand alone, to be scrutinized, to have people look at you sideways. Who does she think she is? But it's okay. There's no judgment. There's room enough at the table for us all, and
Mm,
I welcome all conversations, even if you don't agree with me. I
mm,
think that is those are the moments when we learn, when we grow, when we stretch, you know? They are needed, but certainly if you are feeling like some of our conversation today has resonated with you, and you have felt like you've been alone maybe, then please reach out or stop by Instagram and see what's on there. I'm hoping to do a lot more. I've got some things that are in the works. Comp season is upon us. So as a
mm,
mom and at different studios, it's busy. But there's some things in the works that I hope will be a great encouragement um, to people. I think people are just looking for that right now, not being told who to be, but just the
mm,
space to be who they've been created to be, and to know that it's okay.
mm. I agree. I agree. Thank you so much for your time, Kiara.
Thank you. Bless you. Bye-bye.